shit.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Durable by Design. We are wearing the same clothes as last time because we're just starting this thing right after last time. We're number 2 in the series. We're talking about what keeps service companies from winning, or as Crispy says, what makes service companies?
Why service companies suck? Honestly, yeah.
My right hand here was looking at a Slack message. Okay, Crispy, where do we start? You have a list of 10. What is the next one?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest one. People hate agencies because of the leech mentality of just sucking money out of the business and not adding equivalent value to justify that money. And the larger topic that this falls under from my perspective is value-based selling or positioning versus like hourly based or time based, things like that. And this is a spicy topic with a lot of
Let me understand this problem set, because I'm gonna hear what you said, and I probably need some helpful here. Is people hate agencies because of the leech mentality, and what does that mean? What do you mean by leech?
All they do is they are like a parasitic relationship for the business that they dump money into, and that's it. There's likely every person that's an agency owner can, I think, attest to this, where they've had a sales cycle where it's like, we don't do retainers or no agencies, like we just don't do that, because there's experiences of, we're going to have this 1-year retainer to solve this one problem, and we're not going to show any value in any other area besides just this problem.
You say leech as in they try to take as much possible from the business they're a part of without giving the associated value with it. They leech.
Exactly.
Okay. And then you say focus on value selling versus value delivery. I'm assuming that's part of the critique. So what do they do instead?
Yeah, I think it's an equation of, you are trying to sell this value initially, and your job is to deliver upon that value. And for some, it's very hard to do that. And some believe that time spent equates to value, which I fundamentally disagree with.
Okay, so now I think we just got to a heart of something.
Yeah.
Is let's call it a problem set. Is the way agencies are priced, which is usually retainers, and you buy buckets or whatever nomenclature they're using, buckets of hours as direct relationship to value, is fundamentally flawed. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes.
Okay. Why? Talk to me about why you think that's flawed, and what do you recommend, or what have you done about it?
Yeah. So it works in 2 ways. One is for those that believe time spent equates to value, in the sense of the longer I spend on this project, the more money I can extract. Like billing hourly is a good example of this. If I spend 100 hours on this project, I'm going to collect 100 hours worth of billables, which is flawed if you can do it in 10 hours. It's not a great customer experience, because the customer wants this done in X amount of time, and sometimes it's not possible in discovery or not wanted to do full analysis of how long a project would take, or an achievement would take, I should say. So customers get frustrated in the sense of, this is not being done in a timely manner, and there's way too much time being spent on this, and time is money in that equation. And on the flip side, I think it's not, in that scenario, in my opinion, it's not really focused on a solution, like delivery of a solution to the customer. So the way that I was doing this is more value-based selling, in the sense of, if I knew and if I was able to quantify the value of a solution that my team was designing, that is like the value reflected in the price point, no matter how long it took. In the sense of, onboarded an enterprise customer at Inbound in 2022 in 4 minutes, right? That didn't mean it was 4 minutes of 1 hour, and that's the cost being like $8 or whatever.
Wait a minute. That sounds impossible. How'd you do that?
Shameless plug. Yeah, it was a super deployment for us.
Just making sure we said it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so deployed a super package to do it. And I always go back to the mantra of good, fast, cheap. You can pick 2 of the 3 as a buyer, right? If you want it good and fast, it's not going to be cheap, right? If you want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. You can pick 2 of those 3 in that triangle. And I'm a big believer in position the value of your offering and have your price point reflect that value regardless of time spent. And I'll capitalize on that in a bricklayer scenario, or if I am a bricklayer starting my journey, I am building my first wall and it takes me the entire day to build it, right? And it's the worst one that I'll ever build. It looks awful. There's cement everywhere. It just looks terrible, right? But 10 months later, if I build that exact same wall with like same amount of bricks, all that stuff, I'm doing it a lot quicker, right? And it's a lot better. So this is where like being a consultant makes a big difference, because you're paying for the expertise of a consultant because they've been through this journey before and they know the things to think about, and that is value. And it's not the time spent to achieve the solution.
What I loved, everything you said there. Specifically, this is a really useful framework for agencies or consultants, what are you going to call yourself? It is the triangle of cheap, good, fast. And I would even say, I'm big on process, I'm big on methodologies, because you have to have a methodology. And it's actually not wrong to say, I'm going to be fast and cheap.
Yeah.
Now, you'll hear people complain about you, because if you do something fast and cheap for a long time, it'll be halfway good because you're getting good at being fast and cheap.
Yeah.
But and then people are like, these people are biting my heels and they're taking away. It's because you're just expensive and not fast, or you're expensive and not good.
Yes.
And you're just losing because you're not picking what you're trying to be all things to all people.
Yes.
So know what you pick and execute on it. So that framework's really helpful. Is there a specific way you solve for this problem in your experience?
Yes, there's a couple of ways to begin to solve for this if you're exploring this as a thing in your business. One is quantify pain, right? If you can quantify pain, you can quantify value, very simply. In the sense of, a good example is when I had a new HubSpot onboarding like coming to me, like a business that wants to implement a CRM for the first time, or if they want to migrate from another CRM, I would say, let's discuss your pain in the context of how you came to realize that. And like, how is this pain preventing you from achieving a mission? And so this is where I'm a big believer, and we talk about this with our GTM partners here at Superit. It's talk about the hero, the struggle, and their mission. What prevents them from achieving their mission, and what's the struggle, and how can you quantify that as much as you can? As in, if you're not able to make decisions, what revenue are you possibly losing out on by not being able to make decisions? How are you, like, what's the impact of not optimizing your business, and be able to quantify that in a dollar amount or time spent, which is almost as important, because you can usually quantify time spent in monotonous areas or time not spent in revenue driving areas back to revenue in certain stances. So it would be quantify pain, that helps you quantify value, and quantify basically everything else as far as ROI beyond that.
And that's helpful. What I heard from this is, don't get on a sales call with Crispy and answer his questions, or he's going to raise the price on you. So there's a reality that critique, let me just like, how would you respond to that critique if I said, hey, that sounds good, but I need a quick and efficient way to give quick prices to people? How would you?
So the scenario is, if someone said, I need a way to give quick and efficient pricing to people. Yeah, to me, quantifying value does not mean it's slower at all. Yeah, being able to quantify pain does not mean it's a slower process at all. You can still quote people quickly in this model, especially as you get to do this over and over again. This is where the consultant methodology kicks in. Whereas I've done this before with other companies. I know what you're already experiencing. I know how to quantify it. I know how to quantify the value because I've done this over and over again. In the sense of, this means that I now have an engine to deliver. I now have an engine to quantify value. And from there, it's really easy for me to make that a process that I can repeat within my team.
There's both the need in a business to get quick pricing, and the need to have, I thought it was very important to have transparent pricing. So the way we solve for that is, I didn't think a lot about, so this is really important, time. I did not trade time. I only traded value. So what we did internally is, and I think I'm going to get down this, your methodology is so important. Our methodology, every point of our methodology addressed one of these pain points in the company, whether it's delivery handoffs, whether it's quality control, whether it's all of it. Our methodology solved for it at some point. So in this places, we didn't sell hours. We sold sprint points, which, what the heck are sprint points? Nobody knows, which is the point. But we built our whole delivery mechanism behind Agile. Agile doesn't work on sprint points. It does story points. I made up the word, just to be clear. And we'd say sprint points. We worked on 2-week deliveries and say, hey, every 2 weeks we deliver this amount of value. And here's generally what 2 points means. Here's what 4 points means. Here's what 8 points means. And here's some ideas. And what I never optimized for was fast. I didn't optimize for fast. I didn't optimize for cheap. I only optimized for good. Now, what does that mean? I didn't guarantee something was going to be done fast. I guarantee it was going to be done thoroughly, and that we've seen it. Yeah. I did really good, and we never. So what that means is we have, gosh, I was selling $40,000 RevOps as a service packages, right? That had some kind of sprint points, and that allowed us. I never once I had a sales process that would identify pain, make the pain great enough for them to buy, but it would never reflect it in the price.
Interesting.
Because the price was always the same.
Yeah. So were you ever tying pain to sprint points, or was it just value to sprint points?
Value to sprint points. Value to sprint points. Now, there might be some kind of, hey, this is the way sprint points works, if you go to like agile mentality, is there's a level of, like a larger sprint point base would be, hey, that was a problem set. Hey, we're going to do a full data migration between, it's like, hey, that's going to be, and we had set that's going to be I'm just making something up, 16 sprint points.
Yeah.
And that means it's going to, by definition, without me scoping anything, that's going to be a minimum of 4 weeks. Minimum, you can either pay the $40,000 sign-on, and we have a minimum of 3, so that's $120,000, or we can scope it down really far, and then I had this other portion. So I had this idea of having reoccurring packages with a minimum of 3 months, and then after the 3 months you could opt out, and then it would go into a year long, but you had this ability to opt out. Or we would have projects, and projects we only did 3-month projects, never longer. If you did anything longer, we had to go into our actual model.
Yeah.
Because there's no ability for me to scope out your project and have any idea that it's right, because what you're telling me is likely wrong. And we had built out buckets. This is where one of the first ideas of Super came from, was I had deal stages. I had, hey, I'm hearing what you're saying. It sounds to me like you don't have a defined sales methodology. It sounds to me like you don't have lead sources that are correct. And it sounds to me like X. And I hear your pain points, and I'll have it mapped on the screen of all the pain points you hear over and over again. And then I would say, hey, if you do a project with me, it's $5,000 a box. And you can only pick 3. What are the 3 most important ones to you? And by the way, I would have 10 of them highlighted, and everything else will be post project and would have to be in a reoccurring relationship with us. And my intent in life is to be so freaking awesome that there's no way you're saying no. And so we just built in this idea of cross-sell. Like you say, I would pre-identify value boxes that if they enjoyed working with us, it would be auto-convert. Not even a question.
Interesting. Wow. So if you were doing, like, if this is based on agile methodology, were you giving customers any control over sprints themselves? Mm-hmm. So they were able to dictate what that roadmap was?
So this gets into a whole nother question of how do you reproduce experiences with people. And we had very specific ways you ran meetings, very specific ways you did prioritization, very specific questions we had asked. So if someone's, because this happens, this is the beauty. It'd be like, okay, we just came in, we thought we needed to redo our BDR system, every BDR just got fired. And what we're doing now is we have to get our sales stages, and we have to do it now. I'd be like, okay, here's these buckets, we call them epics. These epics all get deprioritized, and every quarter we would show, here's our new epic plan that we think you need to do. Yeah. And so it became the strategy. I dictated their priorities. We have, you get, like, how do you move to strike? We told them what we think you should do next. We would disagree with them if they wanted to do something different. They started bringing us into their planning sessions. That's how you command a price point. And we focused on being good and not fast and not cheap. Although we were fast, we were never cheap, but only focused on being really stinking good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that the methodology thing is huge, even with little stuff. Like, I've noticed distinctly since my arrival at Super that the way that I communicate, especially with customers, has fundamentally changed because of the way that we outline just our simple things like our structure and our formats, how we communicate with people. I use my personal life as well. Like, it's wild. You feel it here, 'cause apply those same principles. It's even more important at a service company. Yeah.
because you are recreating humans. And that same statement would be over and over again. Man, it's hard to interact with people in my private life because they don't have bluffs. What are you even talking about? It's just and you just become a big box of value creation no matter where you are. And that's the whole point of any of these businesses, right? Create human flourishing.
Yeah, I have a story on that. So I was talking to my wife over the weekend, and she was like, "What do you want to do?" And I forgot what it was. I was like, "I want to stay home." And I was like, "My conviction on this is like 8 of 10." And she was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And I was like, "Yeah, 8." I was like, "Oh gosh, it's bleeding out. They're blending together now the way that I operate."
It's great. But by the way, guys, so here it is. And there's certain things we may do a whole. Well, you know what? We're gonna do an episode on all of Superd's operating principles and why I think it's important.
So good.
Yeah. And you should take all of them and integrate them. It'll make you better as a business.
Oh, it's amazing.
But one of them is like when you're talking, share your level of conviction. Now, maybe this is self-policing because everything I share is like 8. Everyone thinks it's 8 or 9 out of 10, and often it's a 2. I was just testing. I don't know. I was like, I'm 2 out of 10 here. So Crispy, not that he is, but you'll have some people that are very tempered, and they say something, and you think it's a 2 out of 10, they're 8 out of 10, and you just ignored them.
Yeah.
And so it's so important when you're talking to a client, like, hey, I need to communicate this to you, and I want you to hear it. 8 out of 10 conviction, 9 out of 10 conviction that doing this first will not be good for your business. Mm-hmm. And if they say, doing it anyway, you say received, which is another operating principle, received. We'll do it. We'll do this, and here's the implications of that. Are you willing to accept the risk that this has? Yes or no, which is another operating principle. Mm-hmm. Yes, boom. And then when it fails, they come back. They're like, I should have, and they never question again. And once you're there, the worst, and we're probably just going to end this one because we're finishing on like values and hours. When someone asks you, how many hours have I used this month? You've already failed.
Yeah.
How many sprint points have we? You've already failed. Because sometimes the most value I ever gave for somebody in a given month or our company was just saying, bad idea.
Yes.
Don't do that first, do this first, and here's how your forecast should be. Whole month's paid for, $20,000.
Exactly.
Just by that one thing.
Yeah.
Sprint points be darned. And when you lose sight of that and you lose that heart, you'll start to churn.
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess we'll end here.
That was a good one. I think this.
Yeah, so good. We'll talk about our stuff. That was so good. Let's Crispy, as our traditions have been. We have 4 of these, but tradition is, what's your favorite flower?
Chrysanthemum.
Love it. In the show notes, we'll put a picture of what that looks like. I don't know what that is. Everybody, stay awesome. Keep doing it big. Never stop believing. Adios, everybody.